everybody. This is Sarah O'Brien. I am the Watch for Me NC program project manager here at UNC Highway Safety Research Center. And hopefully you all are joining today with the idea of applying to become a Watch for Me community. I did want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it's going to be posted on our website. So if you have other members of your coalition or stakeholders or maybe other people within your region that might be interested in attending but couldn't today, please feel free to pass that along and share this information with them. I also wanted to let you know that we have a chat box that's open. You should be able to get to that from your control panel. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to just type that into the chat. We'll save all the questions to address them at the end. I'll go through them and look what we have and pick out questions to respond to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into what we're going to talk about today. I do want to give a little bit of background on the Watch for Me program for those of you who maybe are new to it. This program aims to reduce pedestrian and bicycle injuries and deaths through comprehensive targeted approach of using public education, community engagement, and leveraging specific law enforcement efforts. Strategies can include increasing public awareness and expanding local capacity to improve bike and ped safety. Watch for Me is a nationally recognized award-winning bicycle and pedestrian safety program, and it's now actually being emulated by other states. So that's kind of cool too. So for those of you that are new to Watch for Me, we're going to go through some of the background highlights on the program and then go into what you get as a Watch for Me partner community, the expectations of being a partner, which has been slightly modified this year for those of you who might be returning partners, and details of how to apply, followed by, we'll go back to those questions that you may have. Statewide, more than 3,200 pedestrians and 900 bicyclists were hit by cars in 2019, and a large majority of these people did sustain injuries. This is based on data that you can download from the NCPB CAT tool, which I can point you guys to if you're interested in. Watch for Me empowers communities to identify safety issues and needed actions to address these types of crashes. And it supports the implementation of evidence-based approaches like community engagement, training, and capacity building for law enforcement officers, planners, engineers, educators, public health professionals, and others. So while the focus is not specifically on engineering and infrastructure improvements, the Watch for Me program fosters strong interagency relations that can indirectly help accelerate targeted improvements in a community's built environment, stemming from increased collaboration between officers, planners, and engineers. The program has two main thrusts, education and enforcement. And so in the short term, this means raising awareness of the issues with your respective agencies, organizations, and communities. But ultimately, the overall goal is to prevent these injuries and deaths by creating a culture of safety. So based on crash data, the key behaviors we're seeking to change statewide through education and enforcement include driver yielding to pedestrians, safe passing of bicyclists, particularly in shared lane situations, attentiveness of everyone wherever they may be traveling, and being seen under dark or low light conditions. Also, encouraging pedestrians to use crossings and bicyclists to use lights and signals, and general law abidance for all users. We'll work with you as you prioritize the key behaviors most impactful to reducing crashes and improving safety tailored to your community. What Watch for Me isn't. It is not an anti-jaywalking campaign. Based on evidence, we know that strategies that just rely on holding a one-time event or only focus on raising awareness through a media blitz or handing out flyers, they're not going to be effective as a one-time thing to change behavior. And this might seem counterintuitive to you, so I encourage you to apply. to get access to the training and other resources that we provide to Watch for Me partners so that you can learn why these strategies are not effective individually and to help uncover root problems that might be impacting bicyclist and pedestrian safety in your community. So what it is, the Watch for Me program involves strategies at several levels. We look at engagement and dissemination of safety messages to individuals, organizations, and the media. We work on coordinated communication between partners to focus on safety. And then we do have high visibility enforcement of pedestrian and bicyclist and motorist laws. So this program is most effective where communities implement a targeted and ongoing approach to public education, community engagement activities, and those high visibility law enforcement operations. So Watch for Me began actually as a pilot project, a research project for the U.S. Department of Transportation, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And it's been going on for many, many years now. It's now a statewide program, and we conduct it annually through the Governor's Highway Safety Program, which is the sponsor for the project or for the program. NCDOT Communications Office also provides media support. And then the Highway Safety Research Center focuses on implementing or offering the technical assistance and the training support to the local Watch for Me communities. So it started in 2014 statewide with 14 communities being involved. And since then, the program has grown to actually a total of 60 different communities across the state that have been involved. Given the continued expanding interest of communities as Watch for Me partners, and the fact that we're offering more customized technical assistance to communities, this year we plan to only accept up to 9 new applicants and up to 30 returning applicants. So we think of each community who joins as a partner. And one of the keys to success for partner communities is the formation and coordination with its coalition of local stakeholders who have a vested interest in supporting bicycle and pedestrian safety. Each community coalition comprises a unique mix of representation from different stakeholders, but each partner is responsible for carrying out the education, outreach, and enforcement activities through its coalition. So education and outreach activities might be led by an entity in the coalition with experience in public education campaigns and who wishes to strengthen ties between safety, law enforcement, and the community. Enforcement activities require the involvement of the local law enforcement agency. So at a minimum, law enforcement must be at your table, since a core function of the Watch for Me program supports officers through training and assistance to conduct those high visibility enforcement activities. Leads for partners can be in public health, planning, engineering, police, or other local departments or agencies. So one of the things that we're trying to highlight this year is requiring that applicants submit letters of support from the lead agency, from the participating law enforcement agency if they're not the lead, and from the coalition member that's going to be responsible for the education and outreach if it's different from either of those other two. So letters of support from any other coalition members are optional, but they're strongly encouraged. Lead points of contact typically report spending an average of 20 hours a month coordinating their local program. And this doesn't count the time of the other coalition members that are also involved. So for longer term partner communities that have been involved in the Watch for Me program for several years, it might take less time in the lead as that role because their program is more routine at this point. Whereas sometimes in really large or regional efforts, they might spend more time than 20 hours a month. So that's just kind of an average we've seen. We're also offering new programming this year that's going to be valuable for all members of your partner coalitions. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But, it'll include workshops for members to provide that strong foundation to contribute to the program. So coalition members aid in different activities, and each partner community decides what they want to implement. So you can think about, many hands make light work. But also because addressing bicycle and pedestrian safety is a complex problem, tackling it requires working the problem from many angles. Therefore, the Watch for Me partners bring a broad mix to form their coalitions. So listed here are some examples of activities that the Watch for Me partners may take on, and you can see that different agencies might have expertise or networking capabilities that they bring to the table just from this example, the examples listed here. We do aid partners in outreach efforts by supplying sample media releases and strategies for earning free media through access to the training and communications toolkits that we provide. And we work with NCDOT on statewide media releases around key walking and cycling events throughout the year. So like Walk to School Day and Bike to School Day, around Halloween or back to school. Those are all, key touch points to provide messaging. And we also coordinate with their communications office on the media buys and the marketing plan that they'll be implementing to reach people across the state, and specifically in the partner communities with that Watch for Me messaging. HSRC also tracks the earned media that's generated in the local market so that we can keep track of the public engagement events and the buzz essentially that's being generated around them. So more specifically, certain partner activities might be carried out by specific stakeholders within your coalition, and namely that's law enforcement. Due to COVID-19, a lot of the law enforcement agencies face disruptions with Watch for Me efforts. And so what we're showing here is more based on prior years where the law enforcement operations focused on issuing warnings or citations as a mechanism to raise awareness of the rules of the road and reduce unsafe behaviors. But officers can also conduct kickoff events or media events. They can be involved in educational events that speak to traffic safety issues, specifically related to walking and cycling. And these opportunities can create positive situations for police to engage with the community while getting those messages across. Another tool that some agencies use that casts officers in that positive light is the Caught Being Good tickets, where basically officers can hand out a gift certificate or some other positive messaging that might be sponsored by local businesses to the pedestrians or cyclists that are observed practicing safe behaviors. So HSRC tracks other outcomes from the Watch for Me NC communities, like those that are listed here from past partners. Lessons from each community are provided in profiles that you can find in the About link on our website. This can be a good resource to see what other neighboring communities have done, or maybe to look at peers with similar population sizes to get a sense of what they're implementing. That could be a really good strategy for thinking about what you might want to be implementing when you're putting together your application. In the pilot program, we did collect field data at crosswalks to see whether behaviors were changing based on the Watch for Me NC activities that were being conducted. And across the 7 triangle crossing locations that were monitored through a driver yielding study, we actually saw a 27 to 32% increase in yielding from 2012 to 2015. Since then, we've also measured significant increases in the knowledge of officers after they've gone through our law enforcement training. And we've also done a comparative study, a more robust study of the counties with Watch for Me programs, where we had a control group of counties that didn't participate in Watch for Me to compare crash frequencies of key crash types between the two groups. And we found a 12.8% reduction in pedestrian crashes in the counties with a Watch for Me program. Key reductions were found in nighttime crashes, as well as in the reduction of the failure to yield type crashes. So we do see that this is an evidence-based program that has an effect. Many communities already have walk or bike friendly community designations, but the Watch for Me program can be an opportunity to move to a higher level or maybe seek recognition if you don't currently have it. North Carolina is also a Vision Zero state, and several communities have plans to support goals to eliminate severe and fatal crashes. Pedestrians and cyclists are among the most vulnerable and can represent up to 15% of all roadway crashes or fatalities, for a community. And so a focus on these road users through the Watch for Me program can be a step towards achieving those larger goals that might be laid out in those types of plans. And finally, the Governor's Highway Safety Program supports this program, the Watch for Me program, and provides credits for eligible activities through its statewide traffic enforcement program, which is a reporting system that can track or help with officers reporting their enforcement operations, as well as certain educational events or media events and kickoff events that the law enforcement agency would be responsible for, where the key point is to raise awareness on traffic safety and those key messages. So the NCDOT Communications Office also receives the GHSP grant funding to purchase media ad buys that support local efforts. The media support, combined with the safety training materials, help raise awareness about the issues and lay that foundation for the enforcement activities. So the type of ads and materials supplied by NCDOT vary from year to year, but have included things like what's listed here. Typically, the media buys have included placing internet radio ads or internal and external transit ads and other types of creative media. Police departments that are new to Watch for Me NC get 2 sandwich boards that are shown in the picture on the left, and a banner to be used for enforcement operations. And then HSRC also provides and distributes limited print and safety materials to partners, like the bike lights that are shown, reflective armbands, and the bumper stickers. And these safety materials are only supplied to the law enforcement agencies in partner communities after they've completed their training requirements. And the materials, such as the bike lights, are distributed by police officers in lieu of citations. Some additional creative media that NCDOT used in the past include the clean graffiti messaging that you can see on the left. It's power washed onto key sidewalk locations. They've also done gas pump toppers. And then I mentioned the radio ads through like Pandora or Spotify. NCDOT is still finalizing what their media purchasing plans are going to be for 2021. So these are still just examples. Last year, they did takeout delivery bag inserts that you can see kind of in the top middle, and cooler handles that were introduced as the creative media in select cities across the state. And these would be specifically deployed in the Watch for Me communities. So in addition to the print materials to use in your programs, HSRC also provides a range of technical assistance training for coalition members, including the law enforcement officers. We also offer sample templates and social media content, timelines and toolkits, and online resources to aid in carrying out your activities. Key partner contacts also join a Google group listserv, and that allows you for peer exchange, networking, and support across the with other Watch for Me communities. So the new partners get technical support through HSRC, assisting in preparing. We help in assisting preparing for and organizing through a kickoff meeting. And this kickoff meeting is really focused on helping a new partner develop their action plan for their program. We define new partners as applicants that are entering their second year of a program, or if they need further, if they're like within their second year and they need further technical assistance. And you can certainly reach out to us if you're if you're a relatively new partner and would like to know, are you going to be counted as a returning or a new, we can certainly talk with you about that. So a diverse group of your local stakeholders are going to be encouraged to attend to form the basis for your coalition. And you'll be assigned a HSRC technical support member who will facilitate the development of that action plan among those coalition members through that kickoff meeting. We introduced the action planning template that can be used as a roadmap, and that helps for also communications and reporting and check-in calls that we'll go through in a minute to show you kind of what happens on accountability side. But these action planning workshops are intended to be a 4-hour virtual session. You can have it as one block of time, or we can split it into two 2-hour sessions. So another thing we're doing this year, we're changing up the training a little bit. So new this year, we're going to offer 6 2-hour workshops for all partner communities. And given the inability for doing these in person due to COVID, all the training is going to be offered virtually. The topics are going to include things like an introduction to safe systems approach and why bicycle and pedestrian safety matters. It gives kind of a high-level overview of things, traffic laws and enforcement practices, road design and pedestrian bike and ped safety, and then crash data investigation and reporting, and then communications around bike and ped safety. So the traffic laws and enforcement practices workshop is actually going to be provided as 2 sessions. One of those sessions will be held specifically for law enforcement officers only, and then the other session will be held for really anybody in your partner coalition. It can also include officers. So these trainings as a whole are going to be offered to coalition members to build a foundation in knowledge around bike and ped safety and some of the different aspects that different community members might be involved in. And it's important for all members of the community to have this common understanding, not only of the issues, but also the ways that members can contribute to help advance awareness and move towards solutions. So basically, we're wanting to empower and inform all the community members and stakeholders of those Watch For Me efforts. These are going to be scheduled, like I said, virtual workshops, and we'll be announcing the timelines for these, when the dates for when they'll be available soon after we announce who the new partner communities are this year. We're also going to offer 1-hour monthly open office hour calls for law enforcement officers specifically. This is to provide targeted assistance for program efforts and for them to have an opportunity to raise other questions and concerns that might be related to bike ped safety. We did this started this last year due to the pandemic, and these calls are going to be hosted by HSRC along with Sergeant Brian Massengill, who's from the Durham Police Department. So these open office hours provide an opportunity for officers to discuss issues and solutions that might be specific to their communities, and they can allow for sharing innovative ways for delivering Watch For Me programming, which can be pretty critical, given some of the unknowns that are still going to be happening next year due to the pandemic and other aspects. And so this provides an opportunity for peer exchange with officers. Topics on these calls will be announced when the monthly schedule is released, and it'll be informed by officer questions and needs that come up, related to timely and relevant issues. So if you have a specific topic in mind from the outset, please let us know so that can help inform what the earlier sessions might focus on. The other thing we'll be doing is what we call progress check-in calls. And we're offering these targeted one-on-one opportunities for the partner communities to support the successful delivery of your program. These monthly calls are monthly calls will be with new partners, and then we'll hold calls every other month with returning partners. It's really just an opportunity for us to share best practices that we're gleaning from Watch for Me communities, and also to share, learn about program updates and progress that you would be having specifically. And if something comes up, it allows us to help you troubleshoot or provide strategies on potential issues based on expertise that we've gleaned over the years, as well as to share further resources that might be of interest to you. New this year, in lieu of the standard full-day workshop that we typically offer in the past as an in-person training, the law enforcement officers are going to be required to attend a minimum of 3 of those 6 virtual training sessions that I just mentioned. So the required training sessions are going to include the traffic laws and enforcement practices, and then 2 additional sessions of your choice. For new partners, I would strongly recommend that they consider, particularly for officers that are just getting introduced to Watch for Me, to go to the introductory session as one of those additional ones. But if you have questions about which 2 might make the most to attend, feel free to reach out to us. And of course, attend as many as you can, so you're not limited to just attending 3. So these training sessions combine to a total of approximately 6 hours of instruction for the law enforcement agency. And a law enforcement officer from your partner community is required to attend in order for your community to receive the Watch for Me materials, those print and safety training materials. Your agency, once you've participated in your training, you're also eligible to claim those credits in GHSP's statewide traffic enforcement program reporting system. So law enforcement agencies are expected to participate not only in these trainings specific for each community, but also in the action planning kickoff workshop if you're a new partner community. And then, of course, as your agency conducts any activities, to report on those program activities along the way. So there are a few other strings attached for partner communities who participate in the Watch for Me program. While communities join due to the desire to reduce bike and ped safety or bike and ped injuries and crashes, the success of your program is largely dependent upon the time and effort that your coalition puts into addressing it over the long term. So these list a few expectations for partners, including the law enforcement responsibilities with the trainings that I just mentioned, attending the community kickoff meetings if you're a new community or new partner, and then, of course, disseminating those program materials and conducting enforcement and education activities. And then we do provide a reporting mechanism to ensure compliance. There's a few different ways that partners can report on their activities. One is through an online form that allows officers and coalition members to report on the outreach, education, and community engagement activities that you're conducting. And you can document the quantity and description of the Watch for Me materials that might be distributed at a particular event. Then there's also an online form for law enforcement officers to report on each operation that they may be holding. And then, of course, through the check-in calls, having those periodic progress updates that we would be capturing either monthly or every other month, depending on whether you're a new or returning partner. And so all of these mechanisms help us to monitor the impact of Watch for Me and Seed's program statewide. It also helps us to identify where we can make improvements or where new resources might need to be developed to help support local programs. So it's really important that we have this evaluation mechanism in place so that we can help to develop aid for partners to drive down those pedestrian and bicyclist crashes. I will say that we're continuing to always look for ways to improve reporting mechanisms. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how to better streamline the two different forms that we have now. And so if and when we roll out changes to any forms during the year, we'll certainly let you know about that as well. So now that you've heard an overview of the program, what you get as a partner and what GHSP and HSRC expects of partner communities, let's focus on how to participate. So because each partner community comprises a unique mix of representation from different stakeholders, the first step really should be talking with your stakeholders in your community to start forming your coalition. And you may not have all of the stakeholders in place by the time you apply, and that's okay. But I would say at least start the engagement process. So to be eligible for as a Watch for Me partner community, law enforcement, of course, must be included as they play a prominent role in meeting your participation requirements. But you'll need to consult with multiple community stakeholders to fill in your application. Fill out the application. It's online and it's due by 5 p.m. on Monday, February 1st, 2021. Your application needs to include those letters of support that I mentioned. So that's a letter of support from each police department that's going to be involved. It needs to indicate a commitment to participate in the training, virtual meetings, and enforcement operations. And if the police department is not going to be the lead agency for your organization, you need to make sure that you've got a letter of support from your lead, as well as if there's a different entity or agency that's specifically going to be carrying out the education and outreach activities or spearheading those activities. So letters of support from other organizations that you might identify as members of your coalition are optional, but they will be heavily considered in the application review process. So we encourage you to get letters from any stakeholder that you name as being part of your coalition. Applications, as I mentioned, must be submitted online. All applicants, you should probably allow about 30 minutes to respond to the survey, and you can actually respond over multiple sessions. So your work would automatically be saved. The main thing is you need to use the same computer for returning sessions and the same web browser in order to get back in. All partners will be selected based on demonstrating an ability for intra and interagency collaboration, understanding existing conditions and context of your community to be served. So, knowing what your demographics and crash history, problem locations, or behaviors, that kind of information. If you have any plans for community outreach and coordination with schools to be able to, demonstrate and convey that, and then, having an aptitude to leverage whatever other resources you might have available to extend the reach of your activities and messaging is certainly helpful to highlight. Prior partners will also be evaluated on their past activities and participation as part of what we would be considering for that, and selecting returning partners that demonstrate compliance with previous year's expectations. So here's a look at the timeline that generally happens through a program cycle. So the applications, as I mentioned, are due February 1st. We hope to announce the partners that would be selected sometime in March, and then start scheduling those new partner kickoff meetings sometime in March and April. We'll also plan to start rolling out those 2-hour workshops starting in the April timeframe, and those will run kind of throughout the year. We'll offer them each of those 6 will be offered one time live. We're also looking at recording those sessions as well, but they will be rolled out between April and September. And then typically July through November is kind of the time frame where there's what we call peak program season. and also project reporting that's happening towards the end of the cycle in November. So just to kind of see the time frame for that. We'll continue to coordinate with the communications office at NCDOT and notify you as their media campaign rolls out as well. But I would say one thing to consider if you're a new applicant is that, you know, the Watch For Me program typically is not going to be a one and done type thing. Within a 1 year, you're not necessarily going to solve all of your problems. So be thinking about that long term, even now. You know, think about the first application as maybe your first step into Watch For Me, but with the expectation that you might want to be working on this for more than 1 year. So with that, I am going to turn now to questions that might be popped up in the question box or the chat box, and let's see if we have any questions that people have. Right now, I'm not seeing any come in. We can hold on the line for just a few more minutes, just in case anybody has a question. And that's pretty amazing if I explained everything that well. I will also say that if you don't have a question immediately, but you think of something, you know, after today's webinar, certainly, you know, we've got our contact information listed here. Kristen Blank is kind of my right-hand person on this project, and she's key with all communications. So if you don't have a question while we're on the line here, feel free to reach out and contact us. Probably email is best currently, as we're both working from home due to the pandemic. That's probably going to be the quickest way to reach us, but you're also welcome to call and leave a voice message for us to return.
Hi, Sarah, this is Kristen. We actually did receive a question in the question box. One participant asked, so we get materials and training for participation.
So the materials, the bumper stickers and the bike lights and the sandwich boards, the things that the officers need for conducting their operations, as well as posters and rack cards and things like that. All of those safety and training materials are supplied to communities after their law enforcement agency has participated in the training requirements. So that would mean at a minimum, they would need to have those, the traffic laws and enforcement practice training, as well as 2 of the other optional courses to attend. And then once we see that a partner community has had their law enforcement agency interact in at least 3 of those trainings, then we would be able to issue those safety training materials to them. Does that help answer that question? For some reason, I'm not able to see that particular one.
Yes, I think that they were looking for clarification about what they receive as they participate. So I think you did a good job of answering that, but I will let the participant go ahead and confirm that we were able to answer that question appropriately. We did receive another one in the meantime, where someone asked, are most partners cities/towns? Have any Watch For Me NC programs been instituted at a larger scale, such as county?
Yes, that's a really good question. We do have a few places where the Watch For Me program is managed and implemented at the county level. I think Alexander County, if I remember, is one that comes to mind. And then we have other communities that, like for example, in the Greenville location, the college there, ECU, historically has applied as a partner community separately from the city of Greenville. However, they have a really strong task force that's set up that coordinates efforts across those two jurisdictions, if you will. So there's no right way or one way to model your Watch For Me program. And if you are interested in doing a broader, more regional program, that's certainly a possibility. We've also seen relationships in the past between like New Hanover County and City of Wilmington. Actually, this last year, the City of Wilmington program was led from their MPO. And so while it was primarily focused on Wilmington, because it was through the MPO, there's certainly going to be reverberating effects that could be implemented and broadened out to the larger community within their MPO. So Kristen, I'm able to see a couple of question marks next to attendee names. I'm not sure if that means those are the questions that you're seeing that I can't see, or if there's separate questions.
Yes, those are the two questions.
Okay.
We have another question that came in. Can advocacy organizations be the lead for Watch For Me?
That is a really good question. In the past, we have not had an advocacy agency as the lead. They tend to provide more of a supporting role, but we don't require communities to get any kind of resolution or documents signed from like a city council or some other official governmental representative in that fashion. So I would say that it could be possible for an advocacy group to lead. I would caution that by saying that I would strongly encourage that advocacy group ensure that they have a very strong partnership and relationship with whatever the local jurisdiction is that they are planning to work with. As I've already mentioned, obviously law enforcement has to have a seat at your table. So we would be looking for that to be demonstrated because, obviously advocacy groups need to have a really good working relationship with whatever communities they're trying to impact. And if there's an advocacy group that has a specific, question about their capabilities in leading or how that might look on their application, we're also happy to talk more offline with you about that, since that would be a new endeavor for us. So I'm curious about that possibility, and it could be a positive opportunity. I think we just need to know more. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
We have not received any others just yet, but we can wait a few seconds. And as Sarah mentioned before, we are always happy to answer questions as you go through the application process, so don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Well, we had blocked until noon for this webinar, but Kristen and I are happy to stay on the line a little bit longer if anybody else does have a question. But I would say that we could officially wrap the meeting up. And like Kristen said, if anybody has any additional questions you think of after the fact, feel free to reach out. Again, we have recorded this webinar, so if you need to go back and review anything or need to share it with any of your other prospective stakeholders, feel free to use it in that manner. We'll be posting that as soon as we can back on the website, and we'll send an email out to you to let you know when it is available as well. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing lots of new applications. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone, for attending.